Greetings, gentlemen. Allow me to share a tale that has plagued me for years, causing me to lose sleep as I comb through archives and records until the break of dawn. This event took place during my law school days, which were quite enjoyable. However, the story does not revolve around my personal experiences, but rather that of my former classmate and what befell him. He was quite the comedian, always quick to crack a joke and make us laugh. It wasn't as though humor came naturally to him, but he still managed to get us chuckling. However, a few months before the incident, we began to detect a change in his behavior. He seemed to be overcompensating with his humor, as if he was trying to distract us from something troubling him. Though he appeared exhausted, he kept up his comedic antics with a fervor that hinted at a deeper sense of desperation. It was as though he was afraid someone would notice that something was amiss. While those around him may have picked up on his altered behavior, they didn't give it much thought as they were just children at the time. The man had undergone a change, and they simply accepted it as such, despite their attempts to inquire about his well-being. He refused to open up and remained stubbornly tight-lipped. He was a regular attendee at the institute until one day he suddenly ceased to show up. Day after day passed, and his absence continued to persist. Concerned for his well-being, my friends and I resolved to pay him a visit and extend our aid if needed. We eventually arrived at his apartment, but our efforts were in vain. The entrance was unlocked, and we were able to enter without any difficulty. As soon as I caught sight of what lay before me in his room, I couldn't help but vomit from the shock and horror of it all. At the entrance of the corridor, his head lay resting on the floor, his eyes obscured by a film that had clouded over them. Surrounding him were various body parts, including fingers and a hunk of flesh with bone jutting out. His intestines were arranged meticulously and hung throughout the room like garlands on a Christmas tree. The walls were adorned with countless bloody palm prints that sent shivers down our spines. It later transpired that all of the palm prints belonged to him. Shockingly, he had been alive throughout the majority of the ordeal, attempting to fight off his attacker as best he could. Despite the odds stacked against him, he valiantly struggled until his very last breath. After the tragic event, an investigation was launched. However, it was a brief one and came as no surprise. Due to the victim's history of drug addiction, law enforcement officials deemed it to be a drug-related incident and attempted to sever any connections to the matter. Unfortunately, their efforts were in vain, and the case soon became yet another cold case that was relegated to the archives, eventually fading into obscurity and being forgotten. However, I never forgot about the tragedy that had occurred. It was something that stayed with me and wouldn't let go. Although at times I felt like drinking myself into oblivion, I managed to persevere. I finished my studies and went on to work for the police. After some time, I was promoted to an investigator and felt compelled to revisit the case. So I retrieved the cold case file from the archives. Upon reviewing the case report, it was revealed that the victim had not been dismembered, but rather torn apart with brute force. Whoever had attacked him had done so with their bare hands, ruthlessly tearing him into multiple unrecognizable pieces. It was a truly gruesome and appalling tale. However, there was more to the case. Along with the evidence, a diary was also found. The journal was soaked in blood, rendering much of the text illegible and turning it into a messy jumble. As I perused the diary, I realized that most of the writing was completely indecipherable. What little I could read was nonsensical and made little sense. It was around this time that the victim had apparently met a shady and eccentric man at a bar. According to the diary, this man was described as being twitchy and peculiar. Despite this, the victim engaged in conversation with him, and they ended up drinking and joking together. The man seemed to take a liking to the victim, and even offered to be his jester of sorts. The man had indeed offered to be the victim's jester, stating that he found him to be a cheerful and amusing individual. Under the influence of alcohol, the victim had agreed, only to soon regret his decision. It quickly became apparent that the man was not an easy person to deal with. I pieced together the rest of the story from the fragments I could decipher in the diary. It appeared that the creepy man began to appear to the victim at night, lurking in dark corners and haunting his nightmares. He demanded to be entertained, insisting that the victim make him laugh, which he did, albeit reluctantly, for a time. The final entry in the diary was dated on the day of the victim's death. As far as I could tell from the report and the partially legible numbers, it was a complete jumble of words, with occasional moments of coherence. Shattered. Ruined. The joke isn't amusing anymore. The shadows, they're everywhere. It's scratching the ceiling. Why are you staring? Stop looking at me. Get rid of the shadows. Take them away. From where? Don't knock. I won't let you in. He threatened to rip off my head and decorate the room. It's not funny. He's not joking. He said I'd enjoy it. It hurts. You bastard. Get off me. Get rid of the shadows. I said it's time. I said drop it. I'll throw it. I'll throw this notebook at you. And that was the end of it. Perhaps it was a drug deal gone wrong. But to tear a man apart in that manner, what kind of person would you have to be? I knew him personally, and sure, he smoked weed, but who among us didn't in college? I can't believe that marijuana alone could cause a healthy person to go insane like that. So here I am, poring over the old cold cases in the archives, my fear battling my curiosity. What if our victim wasn't the only one lured into being that monster's jester? What if there are other cases like this one, buried in these files? It's a daunting task, but I can't help feeling that I owe it to the memory of my friend to find out the truth, no matter how unsettling it may be.